Well, hello, that's me again, and some few thoughts on the run, because I know people were waiting for my video, and but I cannot produce them every day. In fact, there is no necessity to do that, and but there are some events which need to be commented on, and I will start with the simple thing. On the 27th, number of the foreign correspondents and journalists have been taken to Mariupol by Russians, and one of the Italian journalists, Giorgio Bianchi, discovered to himself that basically what everything, and that's how RIA Novosti reports it, that everything West tells about the situation is basically a lie. Well, color me surprised. What else do they do? That's the only thing they do, they lie. And he was absolutely appalled by the fact that basically everything which is being told in the West is a lie. And he was also absolutely appalled by the fact of atrocities by VSU, Armed Forces of Ukraine, and of course neo-Nazi battalions, and he said that even those little bits of truth which go through and appear on the pages of printed media or in TV, they are usually reduced to about like 30 seconds, and basically still they make an impression that basically Russians are just, you know, rapists and pillagers and things of this nature. So basically it's 180-degree, truth completely perverted. And for people who have doubts about that it is the case, and it was always the case, I can only recommend you a wonderful book by Whitman Basov of United Press International, UPI. He wrote in '88, and this was the book which is called The Moscow Correspondent, and he worked for 30 years, I believe, in Moscow during the Cold War. And in detail, Whitman Basov describes how any kind of the truthful information and reality have been blocked by Western media. That's what they do. And I'm sorry, and when people say to me, like, when I hear Western journalist, there are no journalists in the Western mainstream media, period. There are a bunch of the crooks with the egos larger than cathedrals, and basically people who already sold their consciousnness and any kind of integrity and became whores. I mean, they are whores, sometimes literate whores. I mean, I don't know who, you know, screws whom there, you know, to advance their careers, but that's what they are. They report basically propaganda, and most of this propaganda is probably provided by respective intelligence services and military services. I don't know what, in the United States it is well-known fact that CIA is involved big time, and also it was involved in Germany. I don't remember the name of the correspondent or journalist who wrote this book, and he retired after that because he said basically it's the PSYOP operation. Well, yeah, we know that. And here's the thing, I mean, there is a clown in the Bild, which is the basically post-SS, post-Nazi German BS tabloid, you know, which subsists primarily on the hatred towards Russians, and it's a... And the word tabloid pretty much describes it. And there is a Mr. Robke there who for years was enjoying writing all kinds of BS about Russia and Russians, and of course he himself, I don't know, we have to check his, you know, bloodline. Maybe he has some SS, you know, relatives there, so which is totally natural for him, like. But even Mr. Robke yesterday, after the famous video have been published, and this is the video of the basically torture and bestiality against a few Russian POWs which were captured by VSU and neo-Nazis, where they basically not only beat them, I mean, absolutely into bloody pulp, they begin to basically shoot them while they are tied and laying on the ground completely, I mean, completely helpless. And they just not just shoot them in the legs. Well, a lot of those shots are actually into the hips. For those who do not understand, if you shoot a joint, be that knee or hip, let alone hip, you basically sentence person for the life of misery, because you theoretically can restore some function of that if you survive, obviously. But you're not going to be a normal person after that in terms of physical ability, and you're going to suffer from tremendous pains, and it's just miserable existence, honestly. And that's what they do. It's called the torture, it's called the basically war crime, and even Mr. Robke now noticed that, oh my god, it's war crime. Well, Ladi freaking da. How about Mr. Robke pull up the archives? And that is why I'm not really like all in arms about the situation with atrocity, just regular war crime atrocity by VSU, by Ukraine. So, because that was happening for the last 8 years. And there are well-documented factors of, for example, cutting fingers of live people, just for the heck of it. And now you see that, visual presentation of people whom West admires. West admires SS, neo-Nazis, all kind of trash scam, uber-nationalists, so people who would, rape, pillage, and guess what? Since last 8 years, and now with the Russians are firmly in Ukraine and freeing it, the body of evidence of the bestiality and war crimes, some SS officers in 1940s would be probably shocked by that, including already well-established fact of the VSU using the civilians as their human shield. I guess some people from Pentagon probably suggested them this kind of tactics, against Russians. But it's also now every day uncovered mass graves of civilians, civilian people being tortured before being killed, raped, robbed, and I mean, it's just every day it piles up and piles up and piles up. It's war crime. It's also crime against humanity, and that's what Western media support. Because obviously Western media work for people who hate freaking Russian guts, and they would love, like General Scales from Pentagon. General Scales evidently lost every single freaking war he participated in, and because he is sore loser, he constantly advocates for killing more Russians, on CNN or Fox, what have you. So yeah, just look up General Scales, and they're all like that, so they sore losers, they lost all their wars, and they're just ready to go any lengths to see as many Russian civilians, suffer, and the more they kill more Russian soldiers, good. I'm pretty sure there are many people there who silently applaud what those neo-Nazis from Azov, which is not really battalion, it's more brigade, if not even larger than that, did to Russian POWs. They love it. They just enjoyed it. They enjoyed when, Chechen and international terrorists were killing and slaughtering innocent children in Beslan. They still blamed Russians for that. So, yeah, we're not talking about normal people. We're talking about people who are absolutely, completely lost. So, and that's the situation with the MSM, mainstream media, and even when Mr. Robke, who basically lied all his life, being paid for spreading BS about Russia, begins to notice that it's a war crime. Oh, really? So, and this is just the start. But Mr. Robke is some kind of scumbag, from some shitty German tabloid in the country which is completely disintegrating as I speak it economically. But when Mr. Patrushev, the secretary of the Russia Security Council, begins to say what he's saying today, then everybody begins to listen. And Mr. Patrushev today went on record when he stated that basically Russia has enough evidence and documented and material evidence of what United States were doing in those biolabs, including experiments on people. You may ask what kind of people, I can tell you. And this was known for a while, now it is documented and the evidence is there. It's on civilians who would agree and on the servicemen of the VSU, Ukrainian Armed Forces. They were evidently infected by all kinds of things, but for now I do not want to go any more further because war crimes tribunals are being established. And we will see all this evidence, which will be shocking, of course. And that is why, that is kind of sort of explains a little bit this hysteria and absolute madness in the Western media, and they understand. things which will begin to appear there. And again, this is not even Yugoslavia or Serbia alone who can make a case, for all respect and love for Serbs and, Serbia. It's a small country. Russia is a superpower. And when Russia will begin to present that, my gosh, believe me, that will be some shocking, there will be shocking revelations. So that is why so much worry, so much hysteria, and of course, as usual, so much propaganda and creation of the alternative reality. So basically everything you hear today from Pentagon or so-called intelligence community is just laughable. It's everything they talk about, strategy, how Russians fight and all that. It's absolute garbage. It's all done for a single reason to kind of mitigate the basically catastrophe. It's PR catastrophe too for the United States. Not to talk about real catastrophe, economic and cultural, but is to show that the United States still matters. It doesn't in terms of the war in Ukraine, except for the supplying the same people who torture people, rape them, pillage them, and kill them with some weapons of the, tactical nature, like probably, javelin grossly oversold. It's actually Russians more, not afraid, but they respect more in law even than javelin, which doesn't work that well, actually, in real combat conditions. And so we have this situation. And then, of course, we have U.S. president who basically says one thing, and White House need to run and immediately, as somebody wonderfully said, clean up on aisle 3. The problem is, of course, that when Biden stated about Vladimir Putin that he is not supposed to remain in power, and then everybody says, oh no, he didn't mean that. No, he meant exactly what he stated. Another matter that he probably dropped it accidentally, and this is the discussion that, yeah, regime change is in for Russia. It's been around for a while. Look up Mr. Henry Kissinger's interview to National Interest in 2015, where he admitted that, yeah, basically the decision is to break up Russia. Well, breaking up Russia is called regime change, okay? So, and Putin is hated universally by the American elites and European lapdogs, but it is what it is. That's what Biden stated. And then, of course, they run say, no, there's no regime change, we don't want to. No, you want to. Everybody knows that. Russians know that. And that's the other thing. They think that Russians are idiots. They are not, actually. And Russia knows that. It's all about basically attacking Russia. And Ukraine is just one of the parts of the larger massive geopolitical struggle which happens now. And the United States is losing it. And so when Biden says that, yeah, we, want Putin just gone, or whatever he said, that he doesn't have the right to remain in power. So, yeah, that's what he meant. And that's what American elites mean. So, and that is why Russia doesn't talk to the United States anymore. And everybody understood everything. So there's no need. So, and the other thing, when he was talking to people from 82nd Airborne, that they will see Ukraine, well, and then again, the, clean up, courtesy on aisle 3 or 4, what have you, and again, White House and all those, media started to clarify that, no, that's what he didn't mean that. There is a contingency. Come on. If the Joint Chiefs of Staff and, the U.S. Army and other forces and branches, didn't do the contingency planning, that they are simply unprofessional. They certainly did. And one of the contingencies, of course, as there is a contingency in Russian general staff, is to fight Russians in Ukraine, So another matter, the United States doesn't have forces to do that, and even if we do it, if we would have it, it would still lose, and basically it would end up in the destruction of the United States. But the point is that this is Mr. Biden is just simply, basically leaks what is being told in the corridors of power in Washington, D.C. And corridors of power in Washington, D.C. are filled with hatred to Russia and Russians. And if they would see, just genocide of Russians as whole as civilians, they would be lucky, they would love it. So, and it's been the case. On record, I write books about it. It's a racial hatred. They just hate Russian gods. They hate them for different reasons. Neocons have their own type of hatred. Anglo-Saxon elites, so to speak, Uh, they have their own reasons, but in general, it's a lot of it is racial. As Mr. Clapper said, that genetically Russians are predispositions to be subhumans. Well, let's summarize it this way, like steal, penetrate, influence something. So yeah, there you go. I know I'm Russian. My genetics tells me constantly, to penetrate somebody, to steal, to, just manipulate. You see, I'm sitting here. It's my genetics talking to you. I'm manipulating with you, talking about facts and issues. Now, to the military part, Mariupol is actually de facto liberated. Pretty much what's left of the Azov is actually now concentrated in the Azovstal, what used to be the steel mill, huge steel enterprise, huge steel plant. And for those people who still listen to all kinds of this BS by all kinds of Russian and fanboys and other Western fanboys who put those, analysis, quote unquote, on YouTube and state that as if they know shit, they don't. But as you could listen, and I posted it on my blog, for example, interview of General Polikovsky. And this is a guy who commanded armies in Chechnya, and he graduated Academy of the General Staff, so there's no doubt, so to speak, about qualifications of this guy. Because he states there pretty much clear, and it's obvious. Once they are in Azovstal, and the process is ongoing as I talk to you, Azovstal will be wiped out. So nobody is going to be throwing the basically storm groups, as for example it was done when the civilians were needed to be extricated from Mariupol. And basically Mariupol as a whole, as a city, is pretty much clean now. They kind of do the basic mopping up, and Azovstal will be razed to the ground, including its underground facilities, where the remnants of this Azov battalions are there, and yeah, the work is continuing there. And from what became clear yesterday, which was pretty much known, is there is a lot of drugs, methadone, methamphetamines, and hard drugs, which you need to use, I don't know, heroin, whatever. They use a lot of it. I mean, because those neo-Nazis, they know what is expecting them, and they can fight only when they are really high, because I don't think so. They will be, well, some of them will be taken prisoners. Others will be not executed. They will be killed on spot, I mean. And rightly so, because these are not normal humans. They are animals. They are neo-Nazis. And anybody from the Western media who begins to, split here that, oh, no, they're not necessarily Nazis, and National Socialism is this and that, well, bloody freaking dog, go screw yourself. They are Nazis, and they are misanthropic. This is a misanthropic ideology, human hatred, which is permeating everything there is now in the basically government of Ukraine, and that's what it is. And Mariupol already, the flags of LDNR and Russia have been raised over the former headquarters of the Azov, we'll call it battalion. It's there, and now the huge humanitarian effort starts. And of course, as you might expect it, the forces which will be freed, or untied if you wish, from this operation, and this is happening again as I speak to you, they will be moved to other operational directions on the theater of operation, and probably to close the larger, not smaller one is already surrounded in Donbass, but larger whole eastern central Ukraine cauldron, where the rest of the demilitarization will happen, and the remnants of the armed forces of Ukraine will be finished off. So that's the situation, and this is what I wanted to talk about, and you need to hear those accents, really. And I, as you already know, and I am constantly on the record, I write it on blog, that I hate to give just all this, shiny military porn and toys, updates, and, how they, some platoon or squad fought, I mean. And that's the thing. One of the reasons of the initial success, so to speak, of the UK propaganda, Ukrainian propaganda, about, I don't know, killing hundreds of thousands of Russian troops, 3 times over, wiping up Russian Air Force and things of this nature, was because they fed it properly into the Western public, which now, and Western public's reality is primarily defined by the virtual reality. The reason being that actually Western elites are not capable of running anything in reality, in real life. They cannot run the freaking 7-Eleven store. And so the only thing they have skills of are those of the PR and creating this alternative reality. But the point is, it doesn't matter. Wars are won not in the alternative realities, they won on the battlefield. Economy runs not on the media spin, it runs on the prices of bread, butter, and milk, and what have you, and how much you pay for the gas. And that comes this to the last segment I wanted to mention, really. Now, Germany, which is the leader of the free Europe, says, oh no, we're not going to pay the rubles for, gas, and, and then Europe says, no, we're not going to pay the rubles for the gas. Well, too bad. I mean, you don't pay, you don't get it. And that's what they didn't understand. Russia doesn't really care about supplying Europe anymore. First, Russia can take those losses if it comes to losses, and will be fine. I mean, basic, inconvenience, nothing more than that. But for Europe, it's a death. So they don't want to pay for gas in rubles. No gas. I mean, that's what it is. They thought that they still continue to think that these are jokes. They think that they're so just, wonderful, and they're so attractive. And that is the other thing about the imbeciles who write in the, and who sit in, for example, like Ursula von der Leyen and the Mrs. or, Frau Baerbock, who think that, Russians are deterred by the fact that they cannot buy this overpriced crap from Gucci and whatever the brands they were selling in Moscow. And now the GUM, the main central famous department store, is like half empty. Sure, why not? I mean, who needs Gucci or whatever the freaking overpriced crap which is made in China anyway needs to, So, and Russians will survive just fine. Now the Russians are thinking how to goddamn kick French out of Russia. That's the problem now, because Auchan is not moving anywhere. Their CEO, I believe his name is Yves Claude, he stated, no, we're not going anymore. It's like, darn. So Auchan stays, and this is major French retailer. So, and so Russians are really scared shitless. I'm being facetious, of course, that, they will not be able to buy Gucci overpriced crappy watches for $10,000, which are useless and no better than the watches for $500. So, that's what it is. These are not jokes. So Europe chose its fate, and Germany did, so let them eat their, cake, so to speak. And but other than that, I don't even know what I have to stress it for today. And this is Monday, and this is kind of the primer for the upcoming week, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna hear a lot of interesting military news and intel news. And as always, for those who can afford, please support me on Patreon. And please subscribe to my channel on YouTube. And so I'll talk to you later, guys. Have a really nice week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.